Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 10th of January. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this Monday morning after a little mini break by Joshua Barrie. How are we doing, Joshua?
Refreshed, Derek. Revitalised. No, good, mate. Only 7 days, a week tomorrow, 8 days till Rangers are back in action. So the winter break is coming to a close. Looking forward to that. But all good. Thanks for having me as ever.
Yeah. We can't wait for the football to resume. There's no doubt about it. Of course, that trip to Pataudry looming on the 18th of January. Yeah, so certainly looking forward to it. Loads. Before we continue, if you are watching us on YouTube, folks, I know that many of you are now doing so. Just hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss a video when we go live, and also to take advantage of the Rangers Review site as well. So many of you are subscribing now, so thank you very much for doing so to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Just £2.99 a month. Okay, let's talk. Still a number of things to talk about with regards to Rangers. Of course, we're smack bang in the January transfer window, Joshua, and reports circulating this morning suggest that Dundee United goalkeeper Benjamin Siegrist may be a possible option for Rangers in the summer. There's talk of a pre-contract agreement. Of course, Alan McGregor and John McLaughlin are out of contract in the summer. What's your feelings behind this link? Is this a player that you wouldn't mind seeing at Ibrox?
It's a really interesting one, Derek, because I think he's he's a player that's been mentioned in the past, and it seems it could be quite one of these strange transfers that make sense. Rangers seem to keep finding themselves within, where a player who has proved himself in the Premiership has a really. I've not got the stats to hand. I was just trying to get them there, but if we look at goals saved above average, which is kind of the metric that StatsBomb used to measure how keepers are performing based on the quality of shots that they save. So instead of just looking at, say, a goalkeeper saved this many shots, it contextualizes the quality of the shots, and his number last season was up there with McGregor, I think just below. It might have actually been slightly higher at one point in the season. So, a really, really impressive goalkeeper at Scottish Premiership level. Don't know how much, how good he is with the ball at his feet. Obviously, I think Tam Courts, I've not watched loads of Dundee United, but I presume he's introduced a little bit more of a ball on the floor style at the back. Siegrist, as you say, is 29, good age, probably coming into his peak years as a goalkeeper. And certainly I guess it depends, Derek, on what the plan is with Robbie McCrory long term. Whether John McLaughlin is in line to become number one next season, whether Alan McGregor keeps on going as, and although that he's turning 40 this month, he's done it before, hasn't he? So, certainly an interesting one. But I think if you look at him in terms of getting him for free, proven in the Scottish Premiership, and his underlying numbers have been very good, especially last year in the Scottish Premiership. Really good size for a goalkeeper. There's a lot to like there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of the goalkeeping position long term. I tend to think that Robin McCrory is being kept in and around to be part of the number one conversation, because I think he'd be out on loan if not. But we'll see. Definitely one that would get the yes from me. Similar to Suter, makes sense. You're not going to have a huge financial outlay in terms of getting the player in and the cost, and they know the league well and have performed well in the league.
Yeah, we've got loads of comments coming in, Joshua. So we'll take the first one by Rory Morrison here. He says, if Siegrist comes in, does this look like McGregor is retiring? There's going to come a point in time when Alan McGregor does hang up the gloves. At the moment, he's bang in form again. It's great to see. Not that he wasn't in form, but I think that the whole defence was slightly shaky before the change of manager. But he's back to his best. His contract is up at the end of the season. If you had a crystal ball, do you think he's going to maybe call time in the summer, or do you see him still hanging around?
Who knows, Derek? Because realistically, when he came in Gerrard's first season, how many people would have thought he'd still be doing it today? So I wouldn't like to be the one that writes off Alan McGregor in terms of his, saying this is his final year, because you just don't know. And what if he does? He's performed really well under Van Bronckhorst, and we had a piece. I think it was on Friday that I put out on the site looking at his stats and how again, using that same metric, goals saved above average. Can't even say that. Goals saved above average. His average is increased by about 4 goals since Van Bronckhorst came in. So really impressive. And you asked him, we spoke about this last week, Derek, at a press conference about why that's happened. And although he had a joke in the first instance, his conclusion of defending better as a team, I think, is the answer, because as fullbacks are being left less exposed, Rangers, there's less predictable ways to upset the defence compared to the League Cup semi-final, which was a culmination of how you upset that defensive structure, which teams had become wise to. So I think McGregor's really benefited from that. He's also benefited, I think, from Calvin Bassey playing really well in front of him and stopping a lot of attacks before they materialise. So who knows? Again, like the centre-back situation a few weeks ago, Derek, perhaps there wasn't that much of an evident contingency plan, although I've no doubt there was behind the scenes. But you have Calvin Bassey there, you have James Sands coming in, you have a couple more centre-backs linked. And I'm sure with the goalkeeping position over the next couple of months, it'll become more evident what the plan is next season and moving forward. But I guess also it depends. McGregor didn't have a great start to the season statistically. He was in and out the team a lot. It seemed like there was a lot of rotation in the goalkeeping position, which can't have helped in hindsight the defensive numbers that we've seen, and the communication perhaps, I don't know. But to concede the first goal in 6 or 7 games, whatever it was, by the end of Gerrard's era, it certainly wasn't the defensive bedrock that was in place last season. So certainly one to keep an eye on for the rest of the campaign.
Yeah, good to have Roy Nelson's company as ever he watches us from across the other side of the globe. He says, good morning, evening here, gents. Always love Mondays to Fridays when you're here. Given that McLaughlin has never let us down, I would hope that we would offer him a new contract. And we still have Robbie, as you mentioned, Joshua. Just touching on McLaughlin, would you like to see him offered a new deal? He's one of the number of players whose contract is up at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I guess it comes into what comes into that conversation, Derek, is what McLaughlin wants, because I think he's 34 now. So again, he's in what you'd say is his prime, and I'd imagine, want to be the first choice keeper. And I'd imagine that him coming into Ibrox was always with that as muted as a possibility. I'm sure in negotiations, there's not a guaranteed you will be the first choice, but I'm sure in negotiations when McLaughlin came into Rangers, there was a possibility that could be the case. And Roy's right to say that. I don't think McLaughlin has really let Rangers down. Again, his stats have been quite impressive when he's played, and he came in a good few times, made an important penalty save away at Dundee this season, which springs to mind. Quite good with the ball at his feet. And I guess it's that conversation of then, hypothetically, if McGregor was to retire, do you think that McLaughlin's a better keeper than Siegrist? Maybe so. Do you put them against one another to increase that competition? I can't see McLaughlin staying for another season to be the backup, especially given he's not played much under Van Bronckhorst, who's kind of seemed to prefer the contingency of McGregor. And McCrory comes into the conversation as well, because we heard a lot of noise when he came in at the Old Firm game, saying that he that there was a real possibility of him in the long term becoming a number one. I think Gary McAllister said that at the time. Good to have options, Derek. But I think what we've learned from this season so far is you do need a number one. I don't think it really helped when Rangers were flirting between McGregor and McLaughlin being the number one. And I'm pretty sure that Van Bronckhorst, the early signs are that he's going to stick to that as well.
Yeah, Aldo says McLaughlin has never let us down and deserves his chance, and McCrory is good enough to be his backup. Some comments coming in here about Xander Clark, Joshua, CGM55. It says, what about him? And Albert's 11 Legend says, is Siegrist a better option than Xander Clark? Not so sure. He certainly knows where the goal is, Xander Clark. That's for sure. And if you need him in an attacking sense, but he's another one that's out of contract in the summer. There was talk a wee while ago about possible Scotland call-ups for Xander Clark, but is he one that you would like to maybe have a look at, perhaps?
Yeah, I do think that Siegrist would be a better option. I mean, I don't think it's night and day. But again, looking at their stats from last season, I think Siegrist was just so impressive at times for Dundee United. Also, it's a different thing playing. It's a different skill set, I think, as a goalkeeper, when you're required to make 15 saves a game compared to making 2. And that's what McGregor's always been so good at. When Rangers could be dominating a game for however long, but one little slip up, and his ability to stay warm. You always see my Ibrox running up and down his box in these home games where he's not got that much to do. And he's always been really, really good at that, making big saves in big moments. So, that's very different from when you play for Dundee United or St Johnstone. And, both in a, it's a Rangers sense, so there's more pressure on you, but also in the types of shots you're coming up against, the types of attacks, having to maintain your attention, all these little things. But I wouldn't say that Siegrist and Clark are worlds apart. Clark obviously has been muted. He's a lot. He's won 2 cups last season. Been successful in his time in Scotland at St Johnstone. But I think Siegrist is perhaps a more realistic option at this point in time, just because of that goal saved above average number. That's what comes to mind. It would be interesting to look a little bit more, Derek, at how both are with the ball, how much that comes into what Van Bronckhorst wants to do, and whether that's one of the deciding factors. You see a lot increasingly down south how when teams press, I would think of the Arsenal game against Man City a few weeks ago, and Man City effectively used Ederson as another centre-back so that they could get past Arsenal's press. So I think that'll take a little bit more time to come up to Scotland, but certainly at home, it'll be interesting to see how much the goalkeeper is used in possession next season, if it is someone else other than Alan McGregor. But as we've said throughout, I don't want to be the one that says that, because, and I'm sure you don't either, because McGregor's continually prove people wrong who've said he's too old or he needs to retire. He's still playing some excellent football, turning 40 this month, and he could well be around next season, I'm sure.
Yeah, long may it continue. I wanted to touch on another report that came out yesterday, Joshua. Reports suggesting that Rangers could pay an upfront fee for the Vitesse captain, Danilo Doekhi, to bring him in January as opposed to this summer, £2 million if they wanted to bring him in this month. If that was a possibility, would you like to see Rangers bring him in early?
I'd really like to see him at Rangers, Derek. We did a scout report on him last week, I think. And if you haven't read that, I think he's 6'3".
Yeah,
quite comfortable in the ball. Has played a lot of the time on the right of a back three, so has to step into midfield. Not dissimilar to how you'd compare Suter's role to what Goldson does. Quite responsible at times in the build-up play, not overly, but certainly looks reasonably good enough with the ball at his feet, and as a captain in the Eredivisie, so he's going to have no problems, I'd imagine, playing out in Scotland. But how aggressive he is, Derek, in duels. He has almost an 80% win rate in duels, and if you look at the location of those duels, a lot of them are coming out of the defence, pinning opposition players high up the pitch, and that's the trait that really stood out to me. This aggressive high defender, which would be very well suited to Rangers, not only wanting to pin teams in and retain pressure, but also win the ball back and not allow attacks to materialise, as we spoke about with Hastie a few minutes ago. So if that was a possibility to get into Ibrox, I would be very much behind that. I don't think he's as good on the ball as Goldson. Goldson's better on the ball now than when he arrived at Rangers. It's something that perhaps Doekhi could develop. I wrote in the piece he has more of a switch of play in him, as opposed to the long through ball that we've seen Goldson really develop over his time in Glasgow. So one to watch. Certainly would be happy if he was the person that came in to replace Goldson as kind of the cornerstone of that defence.
Yeah. Another interesting little, pardon me, little report I seen yesterday. Jake Hastie, the forgotten man, Joshua, set to be recalled from his loan spell at Partick Thistle. It just hasn't quite worked out for the 22-year-old at Firhill since he joined in the summer, and it just hasn't quite worked out for him at all since joining Rangers from Motherwell, of course. The high hopes for him when Rangers did manage to bring him in, but it's just one of those that, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, and the thing is with these things, Derek, you never know what's going on with a player. You could have a player who has the worst attitude or the best attitude in the world in contrasting situations. And with Hastie, I know he's the season before he came to Rangers, obviously with Motherwell, I think he was actually out on loan. It might have been Alloa, but I could be wrong on that. And came back into that Motherwell side that had a lot of really promising youngsters and did really well. But obviously hasn't really happened for him, to use a famous football cliche. So, like any young player, you just want to see them, I guess, settle in a place that will allow them to play their best football. And with Hastie, as you say, it doesn't seem that this loan move has worked very well. So hopefully he can go and find somewhere. I think other than Ibrox, I think it's quite clear that his future isn't at Ibrox. It doesn't have seemed to have ever really been able to break into the first team picture. But hopefully he finds somewhere that he can go and continue his development, because Rangers will have signed him for a reason. He will have a lot of potential there that he's just not quite been able to that's not materialised yet. And maybe I think I don't know if his deal runs up in the summer, Derek. It might be actually next summer. I think it was a 4-year deal he signed.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly it doesn't seem like he's part of that first team picture going forward.
Yeah, it just hasn't worked out for him. Okay, that'll do us there, folks. Thanks to everyone for getting in touch as ever. Remember, if you haven't already done so, if you're watching us on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss a video when we go live. And also to take advantage of the Rangers review site itself, a lot of great content on there. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. It's only £2.99 a month to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Okay, we'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday.